Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Thanks for coming here. We continue to learn the month of Teves in memory of Bas Yefega Bas Yisrael, Lili Nishmas Pinchas Menachem Ben Avram David, Frieda Sima Bas Yitzchak, and sponsored also by the Reinitz family in honor of Reinitz birthdays, Liora, Gilad, and Yudi, all in Tevet. Also, the week is sponsored by Daniela. I saw Daniela. Daniela is here. Daniela and Yoni. And all the Bergs in honor of their oldest daughter's bat mitzvah, Sarah Esther. May she be zocheh. She, I have to say, her first shir was in our home in Neve Daniel when she was just... I remember it. May she be zocheh to grow up in a home filled with love of Torah, Maasim Tovim, and continue to be a beautiful role model for his sisters and peers. Amen. The week is also sponsored by Miriam Futterman in honor of our dear friend, her husband, Nachman Yerachmiel ben Yehuda Leib ben Golda Futterman, on his third yortzeit, which is this Shabbos. And by Eva and Yeshua Goncher, Refuah Shlema to their Abbas, Avram Alon ben Dvora Batya, and Chaim Shlomo ben Kayla. Okay, we got a lot to get to today, but don't be startled by the amount of text, because most of this is just easy, beautiful stories. However, there are some very crucial points of limud that we're going to be seeing today in the shir on the life of Rebbe Nachman. Yeah. No, it's not not Rebbe Nachman's stories.
So I need a page?
You need a page. Okay. Everyone, everyone needs a page. Shoshana, did you get? Yeah. And you could keep these also for whoever needs more over here. What we did so far in this series on Rebbe Nachman was we began speaking about the background, Bichlal, before he was born, the story of where his yichus comes from. And we also spoke about his early childhood, I think. Yeah, his early childhood. Things that were going on at a very, very early age, till the age of 3, then 6, then 7, Pachot Yoter, and a life on a biography. We're up to be'erech the age of like 7, 8, 9, 10, mashu kazeh. So today we're jumping. It's only 38 years. How much could you jump, right? But we're jumping to bar mitzvah age. And what we're going to see today is 3 different things. Try to remember what you did the day of your wedding, the hachanas of your wedding, and at the wedding. I was at a wedding last night. I was thinking about this a little bit. Like, what is a person busy with doing on the day of their wedding? And we'll see what a young 13-year-old Rebbe Nachman of Breslover was doing on the day of his wedding. And also... Sorry? Yeah. But which was the norm back then. But the T'naim back then was usually like a year to 2 years before. They were right at T'naim. Today when we break the plate and all that, it's cute. It's just a photo op. It doesn't... The T'naim where basically means that the father and both fathers from both sides, they sign a shtar T'naim that they take upon themselves. And there's a ravim there's guarantors to make sure that the kids end up by a certain date going to the chuppah. And back then you had to have that because there was a long perek of zman between the time that they get engaged and get married. That's really what T'naim were, the shtar and everything. But today it's not so much like that. So yeah, he gets married at 13, but there are key pieces here of understanding his life at the age of 13, things he said about himself, things that others said about him, to then understand how you end up with the Sefer Liklikutei Moharan and how you end up with this legacy that keeps on getting bigger and bigger every single day. So if he's born in 1772, we're speaking about approximately 1785, 1786. Beseder? Now, I'm going to go right inside here. This is from the Sefer Chayei Moharan, which is the basic biography that Rebbe Nassan of Breslov put together on the life of Rebbe Nachman. In newer editions of Chayei Moharan, like this one, which is 2 volumes, on every single paragraph that shares a little bit about the life of Rebbe Nachman, there are pages and pages of footnotes by now. But when it first came out, it was just, okay, so he went here, he did this, he happened over here, and then he went... We're going to fill in some blanks over here. But there's 2 other things and I hope we get to it as well. Because as we learn about Rebbe Nachman's hanhagot that he took upon himself at a young age, some we must never do, and he himself said so. And some are very, very crucial and important. Specifically, I found this to be speaking to me so directly, how to learn Torah. How to learn Torah. So I hope you get to it. Yes?
The Sefer Chaim Aram was written by his Talmid Rav Nachman?
Yes. Whose yahrzeit is this coming Friday? Tonight. Asara B'Teves. And he died also on a Friday, the same way that it came out this year. Yeah. Okay, so there's some names of towns that give you a headache, try to even pronouncing them, but the more you're used to these names, Shoshana probably, for her, it's like saying olive base, but these are just names of towns. It's not going to be tested on it. I'm sure Rebbe Nachman had gimatrias and tziruf yosiyos for each name of a town, but we stay like this. Hanisuim shelo hayu b'Medvedevka. I just know that name, that's why I'm able to say it fast, but Medvedevka. Ki misham nishtadech, Reb Nachman gets married in Bat HaRabani, הנגיד המפורסם בתורה ובעירה, Moreno Rebbe Ephraim, Zichrono Livracha. Rebbe Nachman's father-in-law is a tzaddik named Rebbe Ephraim, and there's a lot more to say about him, but all we have over here is Chotno haya ish nichbad meod umiyuchas mekor chotzvo haya bezaslov. He also came from Baruch Hashem, a strong kovedika yichus, and he was a very respected person. אך אחר כך נתגלגל הדבר עד שקבע ישיבתו בכפר אוסייטין, another place, ובשאר כפרים שהם מהיישוב של מדוודבקה, והיה מחזיק כפרים, והיה מפורסם בשם טוב בין כל הצדיקים המפורסמים, שכולם נתאכסנו אצלו כי האיש חשוב מאוד. This we're speaking still about his father-in-law, Rebbe Ephraim. He was a very well-respected person that basically set up shop in all the villages surrounding the big town of Medvedevka, and a lot of the tzaddikim of the era would come and spend time by him because he was an ish gadol. There's a lot more to say about him. It's a whole crazy story how this second, because his wife died, and then Rebbe Nachman was the one that actually found his father-in-law another wife at a relatively young age, but then she had a problem with Rebbe Nachman, and then he had to eventually leave. The woman that he brought to his father-in-law ended up being the woman that kind of made him needing to leave the area and then setting up shop on his own, because back then, as well as getting married at a very young age, the Nahog HaMekubal by the Torah Yidden, which was Hashem the Rov, bless you, was that you sat by your father-in-law for sometimes 5, 7, 8 years in the beginning. That was just Nahug. He took care of you if you could, so you could sit and learn, or with family business. That was mamash, that's how it was. Now, there is a name of a tzaddik that is less known, and he's really the first Talmid of Rebbe Nachman. Rebbe Nachman meets Rebbe Nachman later. I believe maybe 10 years later, if not more. But the first Talmid over here is a tzaddik named Rebbe Shimon. Now, legend has it, even though it's not verified in any sefer, but every sefer mentions that legend has it, that this Reb Shimon was the one that escorted Rebbe Nachman to Eretz Yisrael, because in the story, which we will speak about Rebbe Nachman's journey to Eretz Yisrael that he made here, which is filled with secrets in Torah, there is a shamus there. It's never mentioned by name. It's definitely not Rebbe Nassim, but there is a machloket if it's 3 different tzaddikim, but most people say it was this Rebbe Shimon. Now, Rebbe Shimon is fascinating, a very amazing story. Hopefully we'll get to in a second outside the text. But this Rebbe Shimon was there at his wedding, and he shares with us some very interesting things about what took place over there. וסיפר לי רבי שמעון הנ"ל, שתכף אחר שכיסה רבינו זיכרונו לברכה פני הכלה ביום חתונתו, he goes and does badeken. Now, before then they went to the chuppah, halach miyad v'kara kama bnei הנעורים. He calls out to some of the youngsters that showed up to his wedding. ודיבר עם כל אחד ואחד ביחידוס, he spoke to each of them individually, וניסה אותם בחוכמתו היכן הם עומדים. And he wanted to know where they're holding. Now I know, again, like with all of Rebbe Nachman's life, let's just admit it, the judge in us is saying, this is what you're doing right after your badeken. It's your kala right now. Go to the chuppah or be with her. What do you mean you're taking people to the side and asking them questions about where they're holding? We're not dealing with a typical person, and we'll see more and more over here how, just to say it, as far out Rebbe Nachman's approach to life is. So even a story like this, which is pretty strange, that instead of going straight to your chuppah, you're actually first going and you're setting up shop with youth and asking them, where are you holding in life? Seems peculiar, I understand, but just open our hearts to a bigger picture of a person that we really have so much to learn about and yet still remains a secret. Beseder? And maybe everything I just said right now was just for me. It could be. I don't know. Ve'achar kach kara et Rabbi Shimon. And then he calls over this Rabbi Shimon to him. והתחיל לדבר עמו גם כן בחוכמה, כאילו הוא רוצה חס ושלום הבלי העולם הזה. Rabbi Nachman speaking to Reb Shimon, and it's as if he was saying to Reb Shimon, all these things that you want, really, you're stuck in wanting the vanities of this world. Rabbi Shimon amad v'mishtomem v'lo yishiv lo. Rabbi Shimon standing there and silent, kind of shocked, because that's actually not what he wanted. Rabbi Nachman starts telling him, Rabbi Shimon, I know all these worldly desires and things and vanities of this world. I know you want this stuff. And he's standing there thinking to himself, I don't know what he's talking about. I actually really don't. ורבי שמעון עמד שם וישתום ולא ישיב לו, כי הוא לא חפץ, he didn't answer him. ענה רבנו זיכרונו לברכה ואמר אליו, וכי אין אתה בן אדם? What, you're not a human being? מדוע אינך חפץ באלו הדברים של העולם הזה? רבי נחמן sees that Reb Shimon is not buying it. So he says to him, what, you're not a human being? You don't want these things? ישיב לו, אני איש תם וחפץ בתמימות. I'm a simple person. All I really want is tmimus. ענה רבינו זיכרונו לברכה, Rabbi Nachman answers him, ואמר לו, כפי הנראה, you know what probably is going to be? שיהיה הכרות גדול בינינו. We're actually going to really know each other. We're going to get close to each other. In Breslov, they learned this out to be, that this was the moment Rabbi Nachman became Rebbe. That a person answered back to Rabbi Nachman and said, I'm actually an Ish Tam. I just want Tmimus. That was the moment Rabbi Nachman actually became a Rebbe. And he was his first Talmud. Bad timing, he's got to go to the chuppah now, right? But you understand what's going on. Achar kach, but he's still not going to the chuppah. This is still happening there. אחר כך סיפר לו רבינו זיכרונו לברכה שדיבר עם אלו בני הנעורים וניסה ובחן אותם, he was testing them, seeing where they're holding, והנה הם רחוקים מהשם יתברך מאוד. They're very far from Hashem, אף גם הם פגומים ובעלי עבירה רחמנא ליצלן. Now, he's not saying they're Rishayim, he's just saying that they're not holding to the level that this Reb Shimon was holding and what Rabbi Nachman was trying to get to. He's still not by the chuppah. ותכף הלך רבנו זיכרונו לברכה עם רב שמעון על השדה. They go out to the field. ודיברו יחד הרבה בעבודת השם בהשתוקקות גדול. ודיבר רבנו זיכרונו לברכה לרב שמעון דברי התעוררות הרבה שאין שום תכליס בעולם הזה. He started pouring out his heart to Rebbe Shimon, and he started words of tremendous awakening, saying that there's no purpose in this world. The only purpose is ki im lifrosh mitavot olam hazeh. But that someone is poresh. How do you say that? Separate. Yeah, they remove themselves from all the lusts of this world. Ve'la'avod Hashem yitbarach. And then Rabbi Nachman turns to himself. He says, "Bifrat anochi," and me, shayom yom chupati. Today's the day of my chuppah. Umochalin li al kol ha'avanot. And as we know, that when a person goes into their chuppah, they're forgiven for all their transgressions and their sins. Bevadai ani tzrich lepashpesh b'maasai harbe. I must, since they're cleaning me up, I must really look deep into who I am. V'chayotze be'ele advarim diber imo harbe. And they were speaking about this for a while. Ve'alchu yachdav yachad ve'dibru mizeh ad ha'chuppah. Meanwhile, the guests are probably wondering what's going on. And the Kala, for sure. Everyone there. The father-in-law probably, more than who knows what's going on over here. But then he ends off here and he says, Ashrei hazoche beyom chupato lachshov al hatachlis be'emes. Praiseworthy is the one that on the day of this chuppah is merits to think about what really matters in life. And I just share with you, I have like a few hanhagas that I do every single time I'm privileged to marry off a couple, and that I constantly, if I see, and it's normal for this to happen, that the mind goes elsewhere, because that's normal. It's your wedding day. There's all these different things you prepared for. You want to make sure you look mechubad, and all these different thoughts. And I'm always bringing chassid and kala back to just consciousness, and we're like, you have to be present here, and really think about what you really, really want. Last night, I even like the father of the chassan, he's a good friend of mine. Him too, I kind of like brought him into the chuppah. I was like, listen, now really, I know you have to. It was actually where you got married.
Oh.
Yeah, it's like I have to, like, you know, you have to list there a million things. Right now is a moment to daven for your son Shalom Bayis. Like these. So what we're seeing here is that Rebbe Nachman is doing like real sincere tshuva on his level on the day of his chuppah. He wasn't just becoming a rebbe to tell people other things. Rebbe Nachman's hanagas were not like that. He would always go back to himself and somehow connect it to things that he had gone through and things that he's still working on. And that's what's happening over here. And yes, he did end up going to the chuppah and they got married, right? Ume'az v'hala mitkasher Rabbi Shimon im Rabbeinu zichrono livracha. He didn't leave him. Rebbe Nachman once said about this Reb Shimon, he said he was so holy that even his name alludes to how pure he is, because he says that Shimon is the letters Mash Avon, which means a transgression has left him. Mash Avon. That's what he said about this Reb Shimon. והוא זיכרונו לברכה דיבר עמו הרבה בהתעוררות גדול, והיה מדבר על ליבו שיעשה כמותו לפרוש עצמו מן העולם לגמרי. He would speak to him and say, listen, you should do like me, to completely remove myself from this world, ולהתייגע, ולטרוח ולעסוק רק בעבודתו יתברך, that all the toil, any toil in this world, is just in עבודת השם. אבל רב שמעון אמר לו, אתם בוודאי תזכו להיות צדיק מפורסם. Rebbe, you're going to be this massive tzaddik and a famous person, ואני חפץ להיות משמש אצלכם תמיד. All I want to do is be your shamas. That's all. וכן הווה. Now, I saw this story over here that I have to read for you from out here. Reb Shimon wasn't just satisfied with Rebbe Nachman allowing him to be a shamus in this world. This Reb Shimon wanted Rebbe Nachman to promise him that he could be a shamus in the next world, whatever that means. And Rebbe Nachman rejected his request every single time, but one time, listen to this, one time while Reb Shimon was traveling with Rebbe Nachman, and they're on Agala, and they got to a certain mountain. While they were coming down from the mountain, the Agala started going nuts, losing control, until there was mamash a danger that they were going to completely flip over, and with everyone on it, and God forbid it would be the end. Reb Shimon sees that this is about to happen. They're going down the mountain in the Agala, and it's going out of control. So Reb Shimon jumps up. He was Moser his nefesh to save Rebbe Nachman, and he basically jumped in front of the Agala and stopped it with his shoulders. And he saved Rebbe Nachman and the whole thing from turning over and everyone getting killed from this. And at that moment, Reb Shimon's like, please, can I be your shamus in the next world too? and Rebbe Nachman said to him, listen, you did a really important thing over here, but did you do this for that? Right? Meaning, no. And he wouldn't promise him until Fega comes into the picture, Rebbe Nachman's mother, and she says to her son, can you please do him a favor? Give him some nachas and bless him for this thing. He wants it so badly. And he turns to his mom and he says, okay, mom. And then he promised him. That's how it happened. And then he guaranteed him that he could be a shamus in the next world as well. Now, during these years, something begins to happen to Rebbe Nachman, which he said that he suffered for tremendously. And that is a 4-letter word, fame. His name begins to grow, and this was a bad thing for Rebbe Nachman. He felt it on his body instantly. He felt that the more the attraction, that word would get out, and he wouldn't even share things with people, but the little that people noticed or that Talmidim understood through the teachings that he was saying, and word then got to somewhere else, these things affected him tremendously. And it was very, very bad for him, and it put his life in danger a few times. And throughout Likutei Moharan, especially towards the end of the first chelek, there are a bunch of teachings there that speak about the tikkunim of people that become famous, what they have to go through, what fame, at any level of fame, what it does to a person. Now we could just say al derech hapshat is that how could fame be a good thing, right? Al derech hapshat, like you could start the taina and say fame is a good thing because why? Easy. I mean,
You're a mashpia.
you could be a mashpia, meaning like that. But as a ben adam, as a human being, fame has its costs no matter what. Even if you are doing good things, even if you're doing great things, fame has a story. Fame has mamash. Your husband's a TV anchor.
Yeah, you're giving me a heart attack.
Oh no. There are some people that mamash they're able to lafrid, like they just. I love it how sometimes here, like certain famous people come in here, and it's like I'm so proud of the chevra because they're not mitpa'alim yoter midai, and that's a beautiful thing. And the real emesdik of famous people love being around people that they're not. Listen, I'll tell you an example. This is a beautiful story. There's a very famous singer nowadays. He's a Ziskite, and he's been coming here more and more because he's from here. He's doesn't live here anymore. His parents live in Efrat. He's becoming a more and more famous singer. This kid named Shmuel. You've heard of him? Shmuel?
10 weeks to be left.
Yeah, he's here a lot. And he told me that he walked in one of I think it was Simchas Torah night, and he's a Breslover. He walked in Simchas Torah night. That's when it was. And then I was schmoozing with him, and he didn't stop dancing. And his parents live far from here. He came the next day, and he stayed the whole day. Then he came back again for a kafir shnias. And anytime he can come here for Shav, he's here a lot. So he told me that in the beginning, like he's in a stage right now where Bemet, he is becoming it's very, very, very famous. But he's a person that understands the price of it. He does. And when he walked in that first time that he came in at night, he told me that he was wondering, he's like, it's pretty strange. What a strange feeling. I'm sure people here know who I am because I've seen them at shows, or I've done like, hey, it's your bar mitzvah, all those videos, and I know the people that are here, but no one really came up to me and made a tumult. And then he said, but then I got so happy that I finally came to a place where people are here to daven. God, I told him, like, you have no idea how much chizuk he gave me. And I said to him, אתה חושב שלא מכירים אותך פה? אתה חושב שלא אוהבים אותך פה? בוודאי שכן. He says, אני יודע. ואני יודע שהם יודעים מה העיקר ומה טפל. So, there's very few people. I know since I'm a little kid, I've always been surrounded by very famous people. I guess the communities that we lived in, and I don't know, life circumstances. It's a strange thing. It's a strange, strange thing. But Rebbe Nachman was warning about what it does to the neshama. But not just that, there is a price to pay when secrets get out. That's the inyan over here. When secrets get out. Certain things are supposed to remain hidden from the eye. Like the Gemara says, "En bracha mitzuya ela min hadavar hasamui min ha'ayin." That brachas really only are apparent and are present from things that are hidden from the eye. So if things start becoming revealed, that's why sometimes, I don't know if you've ever seen a video, you probably didn't see this in person, maybe a video of this. The big tzaddikim at their tishes always have a towel over here. And it's not a towel for schwitz, to wipe off sweat. It's a towel that they sometimes they go like this, and they keep a towel over here. They want to make sure no one can see their mouth moving while they're in a state of dveikus, saying certain things. I first saw this by the first Rebbe that I used to hang out with, was the Biala Rebbe, used to come to Los Angeles, and I was zocheh to be a shtickle like shamus and translator for him. And there was always a towel over here, and he would always keep it like this. And in really elated moments of dveikus, he would cover it because he felt that these things can't even be lehavdil elef alfei avdalas. Athletes, while they're on the bench, or also politicians now in the Knesset, since now cameras can pick up and get close-ups and even pick up sound much closer and in a much more meduyak way than ever before. If you ever see them now, when they speak to each other, they're always going like this. Notice when they're sitting next to each other, Bibi never ever talks to anyone in the Knesset unless his hand is on his mamash. If you notice it. Athletes, like I saw, like LeBron James was doing this also. Like every time they look at each other, everyone has their head on the hot again. La'avdil elef alfei avdalos. But now why am I saying all this? Because now we're getting to the stage that Rebbe Nachman's he's not a secret anymore. Besiper, second to bottom paragraph. Besiper Rebbe Shimon, shepam achat achar shena'asa mefursam. Now it's already, the word is out. Nasa im Rabbeinu zichrono livracha derech kvar osaitin. He traveled with Rebbe Nachman to an area that we mentioned before. It's one of the places his father-in-law moved to while Rebbe Nachman was still living with him. Osaitin. Shoshana, do you know where this is?
It's not Husiatin like the Rishon?
I think that's with a hay.
It is, but I was also wondering if it's the same.
Could be. I don't know. Shesham and that was a place where, when he was younger, in this place, Sham Yagar Rabbeinu Zichrono Livracha Ba'avodato Agdola Beveit Chotno, when he was living in his father-in-law's house. Wow, was he working on himself? Shayadar Sham V'nasai Moder Chasadot V'chayotze. They were going through the fields that the younger Rebbe Nachman used to go through. V'ayar Rabbeinu Zichrono Livracha mitgagea me'od. He started longing. He started having this going down memory lane, remembering what it was like when life was maybe more simple, or perhaps in a moment where Rebbe Nachman's chidushim came down, and when he discovered things about himself. How good it was for me here. Every step that I took here, I felt like I was in heaven. He would be accustomed to do his borus and walk around here. And he started like mamish getting homesick, not to the house he lived in, but to the person who he was becoming back then. It was so good for me here. What do I need all this fame for now? Not that he was looking for it. But he's saying, this is a very important nekuda I felt that I wanted us to go through, that Rebbe Nachman understands that he has an avoda to do. The nature of saying good things is that hopefully people want to hear it, and more people want to hear it. You pay a price. And malasat. It's a very real emotion that Rebbe Nachman's expressing over here. These are his words. Lama li hapirsum achshav. Maybe I should have never taken a Talmud. And he's saying this to Reb Shimon, right? I mean, he's not saying maybe I should never taken a Talmud, but that's how eventually Dvarim Mitgalgalim. I always ask my musician friends, do you ever have one song that you kept as a secret because it was so awesome that you just wanted to keep as a secret between you and Hashem? Because that's the most beautiful thing in the world. It's the most beautiful thing in the world. But then you have the Rebbe's voice in you and says, if you have something, you have to share it. So it's a... What are you going to say?
Do you ever
And
put a secret?
I never met someone like... there's one person I didn't ask because I know that it'll make him uncomfortable. I think he probably does, but other than that, no.
we're asking you.
We're asking you.
Oh, you're asking me?
Yes.
I don't think so. I mean, there's many. I mean, I didn't record most of my songs. I only recorded maybe a tenth of my songs are out there. But that's not because I'm holding on to this romantic, it's not from there, it's just because I don't think they're good or it didn't happen yet. I don't know. I should daven for one. But can you imagine if you daven for one? And then you actually use it, and then you actually share it with the world, and everyone's doing tshuva ilah from it. But Hashem always looking at you saying, that was supposed to be my love song, right?
So daven for two.
Right. A really good one that goes out, right.
And one that stays.
Or an even better one that stays. נכון. למה לי הפרסום של עכשיו? גם עוד פעם אחת סיפר בפניי שבהיותו בימי נעוריו. So this Rebbe Nachman is now speaking here, and he says, he's told me once that when he was younger, כשהיה מתבודד באיזה מקום ביער או בשדה, when he would go and do his bodilus in the forest or in the field, כשחזר משם, when he'd come back, היה כל העולם חדש בעיניו. The whole world looked new. ונדמה לו כאילו הוא עולם אחר לגמרי. And it seemed to him that it was a completely new world. ולא היה העולם נראה בעיניו כלל כאשר מקודם. Everything looked different. ומאז היה עוסק בעבודת השם בכפרים, ויגע וטרח בעבודת השם ביגיעה גדולה במסירות נפש. And Rebbe Nachman's בכלל, during this time he would travel with such mesiras nefesh. Sometimes היה נוסע משם לפרקים למג'יבוש, he would go to מג'יבוש, וחזר ונסע ממג'יבוש לשם, וגם היה דרכו לדבר לפרקים עם אנשים בעבודת השם. Rebbe Nachman wasn't looking to become a mashpia, but he started meeting people. He was in the world, he was traveling, and he would naturally start talking about the only thing that mattered to him, which was avodat Hashem. And the way he spoke about it, היה מעוררם מאוד. He would awaken them tremendously. והמשיך את ליבם להשם יתברך בהשתוקקות נמרץ מאוד. And he drew them. He was so, to me, I can't relate to this, because to me, I think that if I would sit with Rebbe Nachman, I would run as far away as I can, because it would be too much. But I guess maybe in the earlier years, it was more just, it was powerful, it was dynamic, but it was a way of drawing. וברבות הימים והשנים, now through all the years that this was going on, היה מתענה, he would fast, ומתייגע מאוד בעבודת השם, ובהתבודדות בלי שיעור וניסיונות אין מספר. The amount of fasting and the amount of his bodilus that he did was endless, והוא עדיין היה יושב בכפר הנ"ל על שולחן חותנו, while he's still in Osatin, sitting by his father-in-law. But while he was there, sitting by his father-in-law, בתוך כך התחילו קצת אנשים להתקרב אליו קצת, גם בהיותו יושב על שולחן חותנו בכפר, והכל היה בימי נעוריו, ממש קודם היותו בן 20 שנה. So as a teenager, this is happening to him. כי היה זריז גדול בעבודתו, it wasn't like a late bloomer in anything. He was fast with everything. It was very fast, it was very למעשה. וגם התחיל בקטנותו ממש כנזכר לאל, and he started things at a relatively very young age. As we have with the next few paragraphs from Shivchei Haran and Sichos Haran, which are compilations done by Rebbe Nachman and the Talmidim in Breslov, of all the different things they heard from Rebbe Nachman say about himself and from others about things that happened to him when he was a kid, and different hanagos that Rebbe Nachman had throughout his life. Shivchei Haran Tet. We mentioned this once in passing, I'm just going to go back to it right now. היה מתענה הרבה מאוד וכמה פעמים התענה בשבת לשבת. והכל בימי נעוריו ממש קודם היותו בן 20 שנה. As a teenager, quite often, he would fast from Shabbos to Shabbos. I just want to make sure you understand what that means. That means that he didn't drink or eat. Eat or drink from Shalosh Shudas till Leil Shabbos. That's what it means. It's not that he, at sundown, he started eating and fasting.
You sure he didn't drink? You sure he didn't drink?
Am I sure about anything other than that's written in the Sfarim? I believe what's written in the Sfarim. I know you're thinking, humanly, how is that possible? Again, where this is not a typical, normal 15-year-old. Yeah, 17-year-old. Or 80-year-old, meaning this doesn't, זה משהו אחר, we're dealing with someone else. לפעמים היא טענה 2 פעמים משבת לשבת רצופים זה לזה. Sometimes it was back to backs. ואף על פי שהיה ילד שעשועים ומגדל בתפנוקי, even though he looked like all the other kids and played like other kids, היה אדם דק מאוד, אף על פי כן לא היה חס על עצמו קל, והתענה וסגף עצמו מאוד, והתענה חי פעמים משבת לשבת בשנה אחת. One year, he did this 18 times. Now, this is important. Now, Rebbe Nachman, I don't know how to say he regretted it, but he definitely made it clear to his Hasidim, this is not the way. This is before he discovered the secret of his Boydedus. Meaning, what was the purpose of Rebbe Nachman doing this? It was lishbor kol ta'avot olam hazeh, to completely remove yourself from any lusts of this world and get as close as possible to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But Rebbe Nachman said about himself that had he known the power of his Boydedus beforehand, he wouldn't have done this stuff. But he did do this stuff as an attempt, to the best of his knowledge, that this is what would be. There's a wild story I saw in here. And I mean, it's hard to really... I want you to understand now, connecting this to fame. Rebbe Nachman didn't want anybody to know about this. But once you're with the person and you pay attention that they don't eat, you pay attention. I once had this guy named Iftar. I don't remember his name. He was a Ger Tzedek. He was there for a short period of time, and I noticed at a certain point that I never saw him in the cafeteria. And then one time I followed him after morning seder, and I saw that after morning seder he just went into his room, and then he came back, and the guy was pale as mamish, like the chermon, like really white, you know. And I went up to him once and I said, "You know that you don't have to do this stuff." He's like, "Shh." Shh. He was doing Bahab. He was doing Monday, Thursday, Monday fastings. Those that are fasting, to really take out fat, you don't want anybody to know. You don't want anybody to know.
The thing with the letters between the Rebbetzin and the Frierdiker Rebbe, that the Rebbe was fasting.
Yeah.
And the Rebbetzin was like, what can I do about this? And that, not between her and the Frierdiker Rebbe, between her and Rav Leivik. And Rav Leivik, and then there were letters that, like, basically saying, like,
Stop.
Yeah.
From Reb Leivik
Yeah.
to the son.
Yeah.
Did he? We'll never know. Wow, that's interesting. Okay, so one thing here is he would conceal this from everyone, even from the closest people to him, even from his wife. The only person that knew, paid attention to this was the one that was with him the most, which was his shamus. And he threatened, it's probably either Reb Shimon or there was another shamus at the time. His name was Reb Chaikel. And he really made them promise, Be'azara chamura, saying, you cannot let anybody know that I'm doing this. And one time at night, when his shamus, Reb Chaikel, came into him, he saw him lying down. He was so weak until there was mamish blood coming out of his eyes and his ears. Because it was the second half of the second week of a back-to-back fast. So he freaked out, and he said to him, he begged him, he said, listen, I'm begging you, I will do anything right now to get you to eat something. And Rebbe Nachman said no. And when he saw that Rebbe Nachman said no, he pulled out the big guns, and he said to him, okay, you know what I'm going to do?
Tell your mom.
I'm going to tell people.
Blackmail.
His blackmail was that he was just going to, he knew that that's the last, he said, I'm going to tell people. So, Beled Berra, he had to agree. So Reb Chaikel runs to go get a chicken, brings it to the Shaykhet. That's what it was back there, right? On the way back, as he was running back with the chicken, he was plucking its feathers, and he did, he kashered the chicken while he's coming back, and then he brought it and he made a chicken soup for Rebbe Nachman, and then he comes inside and he sees Rebbe Nachman sitting so frail, with one leg on one foot on the floor and one foot on a bench. And Rebbe Nachman said to him, Chaiko, before I do this, just sing me I need to wake up before I could eat. Sing me the Nigun HaMe'orer. Now in Breslov, the Nigun HaMe'orer, the Nigun of awakening, is the Nigun from Friday night, Me'ein Olam Haba. We sing it in our house. Do you know the Me'ein Olam Haba of Breslov? Me'ein Olam Haba, Me'ein Olam Haba, Yom Shabbos Menucha. It's a long nigun, it's a gorgeous nigun. And Reb Chaiko, that had a beautiful, sweet voice, Rebbe Nachman told him to sing this nigun. And when he finished, Rebbe Nachman said, Nachmo, do it again. And then when he finished, again, Rebbe Nachman then said, Nachmo, sing it again. And this kept on happening the whole night. And Rebbe Nachman is still there, and he still didn't taste anything. Then when dawn came, Rebbe Nachman pushed the bowl of soup away, and he continued fasting till the closest Shabbos. And afterwards, Rebbe Nachman says, the whole reason why the tainus became a sakana for me, like the reason why this actually harmed me, was because even before you threatened that you're going to tell people that this is happening, word got out already that I was doing this. Do you understand? He attributed bamash, what he was going through, the danger within something that you and I would say, no. The reason why you got sick is because you're 16 or 18 and you haven't eaten for 2 weeks besides. And don't think that on Shabbos he goes poppers and wings and you understand. What was Rebbe Nachman's Shabbos menu? A piece of herring, or I don't know. It's not like he. But Rebbe Nachman says the reason why this hanhaga that I did, that really, be'emet, for me, this is my tikkun, the reason why it became dangerous for me, is because of pirsum, because it got known. That's what he felt. There's a lot more to this wild story. Let's stop here with this story. I'll go back over here in Sichos Haran Nun Zayin of other things that Rebbe Nachman did as a young kid, or as a not a young kid, as a teenager probably, till he's about 20. This is very interesting. Siper, שבימי בחרותו היה לו פחד גדול מאוד מאוד מן המיתה. He was petrified of death. It's so weird, right?
I think it's so normal for him.
No, that's why it's so weird.
Oh, that he had.
Yes, I agree.
People.
I agree. That's what makes it weird. But that's why I love it, because I'm like, oh,
He's relatable.
if biduk, we could hang, we could schmooze, Also, another thing we learned a few weeks ago before Hanukkah, Rebbe Nachman said about himself that there were many things he took on that he couldn't last with. I was like, oh, I feel better, I feel closer. He had a fear of death, and he was so scared of it. But then he would ask from Hashem, since this thing scares me so much, may my death be al Kiddush Hashem. And he walked with this for a while. He doesn't remember how long he would walk around with these thoughts. For a long time, he walked around with the fear of death. Maybe for a whole year, this is what he was talking about and thinking about. There wasn't any hisbodedus or any davening where he didn't daven to Hashem, when I die, may it be al Kiddush Hashem. ומגודל פחדו ויראתו אז מהמיטה, היה זה בעצמו אצלו מסירות נפש על קידוש השם ממש, מה שהיה מתפלל על זה, כי היה פחדו גדול מאוד אז מזה. What ended up happening? If something becomes the thing that you are most scared of, and that's the thing that you incorporate into your davening, that becomes your mesirus nefesh. Now, in other words, the thing, and Rebbe Nachman speaks about this in other places, the thing that you struggle with the most is probably your tikkun. Ishbitzer speaks about this as well. That inyan that you have the hardest time with, you could say God is cruel, or you could say the fact that you know this means that you're much closer to doing your job in this world, because you know what your tikkun is. In Ishbitzer language, it's called birur. In Brestover language, it's called more your tikkun. But the thing, so Rebbe Nachman, for a whole year, he felt that his inyan is that is dealing with this trauma of being petrified of death. So how do I do it? By ignoring it? No. By dafka, thinking about it and davening about it all the time, that this thing that I'm plagued with, that it should be something that I could relate to, and overcome the fear of death by what? Not by thinking that I'm not going to die, but by making it into a meaningful experience. And this happens in a lot of different areas in Rebbe Nachman's teachings.
So by fasting and coming closer to death, it was helping him. What?
No, those are two different things. The fasting is a separate inyan about removing himself from taivos from this world, and the death was, he says here, that Rebbe Nachman said he walked around like this for a full year. That's it. Yeah.
Reminds of exposure therapy and de-reflection and logotherapy.
What? I mean, that's the dibur of today. I mean,
Yeah, right.
imagine if Rebbe Nachman met Viktor Frankl, you know?
Yeah.
Imagine what those conversations would be like. Can you imagine? Yeah. You know, honestly, like a paragraph like this is very, there's a lot more to talk about this, even though it's a paragraph and a biography of his life, but knowing that this tzaddik that ended up being who he became, had dealt with this, is very mechazek. It's very strengthening to me. Not the fasting stuff, that freaks me out.
Especially because he didn't die that way.
Right,
We know
right.
about the end of it, that it was very long and drawn out,
Nachon.
and you don't see that fear really coming through.
Afuch. En yeush ba'elam klal. 100 years, it's very good what you're saying. Nachon. Rabbi Nachman does not die al kid, meaning, shouldn't say that. Every tzaddik dies al kiddush Hashem. But Rebbe Nachman didn't. The way that it seems from this paragraph is that he, listen. You grow up in the Ukraine, in this area, in the 18th century. Every story that Zaidi shared with you, if he was alive, was about how all his neighbors were shechted one day in a pogrom. Meaning everything that you're, all the bedtime stories are horror flicks. Everything is. I mean, for some people, that's still their choice of reading. But back then, that's all he knew of. That's all. People didn't live long, seva tova, till their 80s, and nachas from their great grandchildren. I bet you there was no great grandfather that ever went, or barely even grandparents that were at their grandchildren's weddings. Back then, times. It was a different world. And you're saying so good, because this is not like this thing he overcame is not actually the way that his life ended. His life ended with at least a 3-year horrible, painful battle with tuberculosis. But even from that he made Torahs. We have so many Torahs of his about lungs, functions of the re'ot, the functions of blood, like we saw a little bit in the Torah of Hanukkah. He goes into veins, amazing, amazing things. We're going to stop here, and I'll tell you why. Because the next inyan is really Rebbe Nachman's eitzas that he began at a young age from learning, but we need at least half hour just on that, and I can't stay extra. But Bezrat Hashem will continue with his life next week. Okay, Yishar Koach. Thank you.